Before we go into our story with Sharon Swiatlo, we want to remind you to go to thesocialblueprint.org.au to share videos with others, to see us on social media, and to view the community resources and events on our website. So today, we're interviewing Sharon Swiatlo to discuss her journey as a parent in this complicated era. Welcome to the show Social Blueprint, Sharon.
Thanks, Michelle.
Now, I've known you for about 25 years when our children went to school together.
Correct.
Where did you go to school?
Yeah, that's a little complicated because I think it took something like 11 institutions to actually educate me. I know, it's a little bit bizarre, so I'll just go through this very quickly. I started at Mount Scopus College. I used to get sick on the bus, so my parents took me out and put me into Coatesville State School, where I remained till the end of grade 5.
I went there.
Did you? Oh,
go
wow,
on.
there you go. Grade 6, we moved to St Kilda, so I went to St Kilda Primary School. Year 7 and 8, I was at Caulfield North, and then Macrob, which I hated. I got into big trouble at Macrob, so I was kindly asked to leave halfway through year 11. I was not a very good student. I finished that year at Taylor's College, didn't do very well there. Then I did a secretarial course instead of year 12. And then I went on Schnut with Habor Nim, and I went to kibbutz, and I grew up. And my kibbutz father convinced me to go back to school. So I, as a mature age student at the age of 19, did VCE at Caulfield High School. So I don't know what number that's taken us up to, but after that I started studying at Rusden, but all I wanted to do was be in Israel. I was very, very influenced by that year of Schnut in 1976. I went to a kibbutz called Ma'agan, and I have connections with that kibbutz till this day.
Oh,
I turned 18, 21, 30 and 60 on the kibbutz. So it's like my second home. And in fact, my best friend from the kibbutz is arriving tonight.
Oh,
so that's lovely. But anyway, just going back to that. So I did my... So I started at Rusden, but I just wanted to be in Israel. So I talked my parents into letting me go and study at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where I did a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature and Theatre Studies. It's funny though, because my father said, I give her a year, she won't last, because of my track record. But however, I did last. I finished that. I came back to Australia. I did a Bachelor of Education at Melbourne State College, and that was the 11 institutions it took to educate me. So there you go.
Thank you. So you had one child, and at what stage did you realise that your one child had different sexual preferences to probably what you expected?
I would say basically from the age of 4. So if you remember rightly, our children were at FKI together. There were a predominant amount of males in that classroom. There were only, I think there were about 6 or 7 girls, and the rest were all boys. And of course, Navor just gravitated towards the boys. And from the age of 4, when children are already choosing the clothing they want to wear, it was no skirts, with a school uniform coming into, those years. We compromised with bike shorts underneath, and it was pretty obvious from a very early age that Navor's choices were more male than female.
Yes.
Although they loved their Barbies, but had intricate stories about each one, like incredible stories. But
always an interesting imagination.
Oh, absolutely. From a very young age.
Yes, that's lovely. So we're aware that everyone has a different story in their children's journeys, but given your experience, what advice would you give to parents when you recognise that your child has different to whatever all the other children have? How do you suggest people handle that?
Well, I don't think that I handled it so well, because I was so insistent in trying to get my child into a dress.
Yes.
I remember we went overseas, and when we came back, my mother, who'd looked after Navor, came to the airport, and Navor was wearing a skirt, and I was so excited, but Navor did it for me, and that's not right. That's wrong.
Yes.
That's really wrong. And all of that. And, when they got older, like, Nevos did struggle at school. They were bullied and they became a bully themselves. Scopus was not a good fit for Nevo, so eventually took Nevo out and put them in Caulfield North, where I had been, and it was the best thing I could have done because Nevo blossomed. And I remember one day I was at work and a friend of mine's daughter was babysitting Nevo and told me, I'm at Target and Nevo's trying on a whole lot of dresses. I said, put them aside, I'm coming. I was so excited. And then when I think about it now, it was just so wrong to try to, because as Nevo says, and I understand it more and more, I'm constantly learning myself.
Yes.
So when people say, born into the wrong body, that's not it. It's born into the wrong world. And the fact that, trans people use this term being assigned female at birth, and I understand that now, because what Nevo says is, Mum, imagine, you find out almost from the womb that you're going to have a girl, and you have all these expectations straight away, colours, clothing, what their future's going to be like, and it's not right. It's just not right, and it's just like I'm constantly being made aware of this, that we have these constraints. And I remember going to buy a present for a baby, and when I walked in the shop, the woman was going to gift wrap it, and she said, "Oh, boy or girl?" And I said, "Seriously? It's a baby. What difference does it make? Do we really have to stick to these confines of pink for girl and blue for boy? Like, why?"
Yeah, it's such a social construct.
It's just, yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of things that are. And as I said, I'm constantly being educated about things and being pulled up for it. And I'll tell you something else that happened. So, Nevo has transitioned to being, is trans male but non-binary, which means that Nevo has taken testosterone and presents as very masculine, however, still embraces that feminine side of themselves, because for 17 years they were feminine as well. And I remember I was going out once and Nevo said, "Oh, I'll come with you, I'm just going to go and put on a dress." And I said, "Nevo, I spent your entire childhood trying to get you into a dress. Then I had to get used to a beard, and now you want to wear a dress?" And Nevo said, "Mum, that's really transphobic." And when I thought about it afterwards, I thought, that is transphobic, because why shouldn't anybody dress the way they want to? I actually love now seeing men who wear nail polish.
Yes,
and think,
me too.
Why not? Why not? Doesn't mean, so I'm constantly having to question myself and the way I've been educated, and expand that to appreciate that it doesn't have to be like that. Who says?
Yeah, well, that's exactly why we're doing this interview today, because we are at the Social Blueprint. We're very interested to hear your journey with your child. So you also mentioned to us a new word that we'd never heard before, dead naming.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, please, what that means?
Okay, well, so often people will talk about Nevo's past and use the name that we gave Nevo. And what that has become is, it's called a dead name, that people who have transitioned, if they're called by that previous name, it can be derogatory and not accepting of the fact that they have transitioned. So the fact that they need to be recognised for who they are has meant that I never talk about Nevo's dead name. I never use that name. I try to use the pronouns they, them, which is what Nevo prefers, talking about their past as well. I'll talk about Nevo's bat mitzvah.
Yes. That's what you do. So that's acceptable too.
That's what I do.
Okay.
I do. So when people say to me, "Oh, she," something, and I say, Nevo hasn't been she for so long. Like, we don't use that. We just don't use that. And I try to respect what is.
Of course.
And the other thing is, I have this constant discussion with people about the they, them pronouns. And the fact that, people will say to me, "Oh, I can't do that," or they should think something else. And I say, well, first of all, it's not actually up to you to decide. That's the way it is. And when people say, "Oh, I can't do that," that's a very kind of staid, old-fashioned sort of view. Like, why can't you? I've been able to do it. I'm an English teacher, and people say, "Yes, but it's a plural." And I say, but hang on a second. someone has left their phone. We're already using it.
Yes.
We are using it. It's just something, and language is evolving. It's constantly evolving.
It is, that's true.
And
there's always new words in the
that's
dictionary.
right, and there's new meanings, and
So besides asking to wear a dress, what other things do you think that you've done that other parents might be doing and not realise that it's unhelpful?
You know what? The most important thing I learnt is that it's not about me.
Yes.
It's about them. And it's interesting because I do have parents come to me who are going through similar situations. They say, oh, what's it going to be like when I'm walking down the street with them and they're this and they're that? And I know, I want to say, but it's not about you. It's about them and the way they feel. And all you need to do is be supportive of them. And yes, you're not going to have the same, but you know what Navor said, you're not going to have the same expectations. You shouldn't have the same expectations. Your child is going to exceed those expectations.
That's a lovely way to say it.
Isn't it? Yeah. So I really appreciated that.
And in your case, that's definitely happened, I think.
Absolutely. And we're very excited because Navor has just done a TEDx talk that's just been released. And it was just a small talk, but TED headquarters contacted TEDx and said, we are really thrilled with this and we're going to release it to our 3.5 million subscribers. So it's just been released and I'm really proud of Navor. Navor worked very hard on it and it's something that people need to see.
Wonderful.
They really do because, it's just about being educated.
Yes.
And
No, you're right.
No, I was just going to say, when Navor came out with all of this in 2013, I didn't have any point of reference. I just had Sonny and Cher's child.
Yes.
And it was very hard for me. And Navor actually wrote a book about their experience called Finding Nevo, which is in all the secondary school libraries. And they've done a lot of work with that. But there's a chapter called My Mother Doesn't Know My Name. Because at the time, I was in denial. I just thought it was a phase. I was hoping it was a phase.
Yes.
And Navor chose this name without me having any kind of input. But slowly but surely, after Navor's friends came to me saying, you need to speak to your child because unfortunately, 1 in 2 trans people have attempted suicide.
I think that...
48%.
Yes, that I'm glad you touched on that because I know that is a significant issue for parents who don't accept their children, however they present. You have 2 choices. One is to accept and one is to accept that you might have been the cause of a child attempting or succeeding at suicide. So I think that's an important message.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. Now, during your journey as a parent, have you grieved what has happened or have you celebrated? How would you explain that to us?
Possibly in the beginning there was grief.
Yes.
I'm sure there was grief. I don't look back. It's really interesting. I only look forward and I embrace the child I have. Yeah. I celebrate. I mean, we don't have any rituals or anything, but we are in tandem together with their journey.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
May I ask, because this is relevant to it, did you consult professional assistance when the news first came out?
Yeah.
Because I think parents would want to know that.
Yeah, not really. I read a few books and things like that.
Right.
But there wasn't a lot of material.
Right.
There wasn't. But since then, I've become more aware of, media and everything that's going on. And I've learnt from my child so much.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it is. It really is.
What other things do you do to support them?
I mean, I watch things. I attend.
Educate yourself.
Yeah, I educate myself. I attend some events that Navor speaks at. They've done a lot of work for the Wheeler Centre.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so they've spoken at galas and things like that, and I've accompanied Navor to the Byron Writers Festival, and they got an award in Sydney. Yeah, so I just try to be there for Navor as much as I can. Yeah.
Now, you've told me that your child came out 3 times. Now, that's not something we hear very often. Could you please tell everybody about coming out 3 times?
Sure, and in fact, Neville will say that they come out every so often because they want to keep people on their toes. But yes, so the first time Neville came out was in year 9, at the age of 14, when they told me they were a lesbian.
Yes.
And I kind of expected that because they sort of, I could see that was what was going on. But it was really funny because the way they told me was that they were at King David and there was a LGBTQI group that Neville just wanted to go to just to give support, and didn't really tell me the truth until after. So that was then, and then in VCE was when I was told that they wanted to transition to male. Now I was in complete shock and denial.
Yes.
Neville was seeing a specific psychologist that worked with trans, because you can't just go ahead and decide and go ahead and do it.
No.
You have to. There's a process.
Does the hospital refer a particular therapist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this particular therapist was referred to, and then wrote a report and said whether Neville really was, that's the way, because it's not easy to diagnose something like this. And so Neville was adamant to become trans male, and I begged them to please just finish VCE first, but they didn't. But they still did incredibly well, so it didn't interfere in any way. And then when the following year they went on SHNUT with Habonim, and that's when they started taking testosterone. So that was challenging also. They came back from SHNUT and they wanted to transition to male. They had been binding their chest for 3 years, and it was, you can think about how uncomfortable that must have been.
Yes.
Not to be able to breathe properly. And in fact, I think Neville still has back issues from having bound their breasts. Anyway, they came back from SHNUT and we organised to have the chest surgery. And you know what? It was like nothing. It was like nothing. They did it. They were out of hospital the next day. They recovered really well, and they're very proud of their scars. And then the third time was when Neville said, "Mum, I'm non-binary. I don't want to be in a box of male.
Yes.
And I don't want to be in a box of female. I just want to be gender fluid."
Yes.
So when people would say to me, "Oh, so does that mean that they're into boys or girls?" I say, that's not even the question. They're into the person. The gender's irrelevant. So, yeah.
So with each of these changes in their life, did you think to mark it with some sort of a ceremony? So how would that not have made that more convenient? Yeah, convenient, I guess, to communicate. So how do you communicate if this is happening? It's flowing.
Look, I will say that Neville and I have had therapy together.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've had therapy together, and not just about the transition, just about a teen with their parent and how and we learned how to talk to each other.
That's gold.
And you know what? It's only really manifested over the last year or two that we've come to this point where we're good with each other, and because it's not easy. It's not an easy path. It really is not an easy path. But we're finally at a very good point in our relationship.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
I imagine that there are a lot of parents out there that are struggling and suspecting that their child might be on a similar path. Do you have many parents reach out to you, and do you mind if they do?
No, I don't mind if people do, and I do have many parents reach out to me. And I think that the message that I need to give to parents is listen to your child. Do not turn your back. Do not try not to be judgmental. It's really hard, but unconditional love, because they are so torn within themselves. We're Jewish parents. We have these expectations that we put on our children that are not necessarily reasonable ones and don't always work for that particular child.
Because we are all individuals still.
We absolutely are, and we need to learn and educate ourselves, and that's the main thing I would say.
Sharon, how did your friends and family react, and how did they support you?
That's a good question, because everybody received it in different ways. There were some friends of mine males in particular who insisted on still using the pronoun her and she for Naval, almost up to like a year or two ago, and I would look at them and say, really? Does this look like a she, her to you? Like, seriously? We need to educate ourselves further and into understanding how this process has happened. My mother was good. My mother said to me, okay, is she going to come to me one day with a beard? And I said, yes, Mum, that is definitely going to happen. And then my mother was good from then. And my mother used to say things, oh, just a handsome F to M.
F to M.
F to M, yeah. But as I said, in those early days when Nicole told me and I started to tell my friends, no, they did not understand it. I didn't understand it myself. And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of resources available. Now, eventually, Neville wrote a book called Finding Nevo, which was very explanatory. And I always said, I wished I'd had that sort of book when my child was first coming out, so I would be able to understand. And I actually got my friends to read it.
Great.
So that they would have more of an understanding. And once they'd read it, they did.
Yes.
And it's the same now with this TEDx talk. I've listened to it twice now because I'm actually re-educating myself even further now. And I think that's a great resource as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So how do people reach out to you, Sharon? Is it best just to find
Facebook,
you on Facebook?
Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram, that kind of thing.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And what does being Jewish mean to you?
An interesting question. So I am a cultural Jew. I immerse myself in all things Jewish, I guess. Not in a religious sense, but I'm a member of Kehilat Koleno, which is a secular congregation that meet every Friday night for a Kabbalat Shabbat that takes me to a place that I never imagined I would go.
Lovely.
Yeah, so I love that, and I love volunteering for Sea Care and Jewish Book Week and Limud Oz, and I speak fluent Hebrew, and it's very important to me to maintain that language. So I immerse myself in Hebrew culture, music, television, no subtitles. I challenge myself all the time in that sense. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah,
An
and I go to
educator.
Israel lots.
Very lucky.
Yes.
Very lucky. All right, and the social blueprint. How have you been using the social blueprint?
Well, I'm sorry to say that I'm not really fully aware of the social blueprints manifesto, but I'm certainly going to look now.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
And please share the video.
I will.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. It's such an interesting journey you've been on.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of people can benefit from hearing from a parent's perspective, from your perspective. Parenting a child in this era is nothing like we've ever had to do before.
No, that's right.
So everyone, please go to thesocialblueprint.org.au to see this full video and feel free to share it with your friends.